Welcome everyone to this week's Wednesday webinar. Today we're going to be talking about using workflows to create task lists within the CRM. And even more than just creating task lists, we're going to talk about setting up your records from when they're created. So we'll cover a little more than just tasks. So just a few steps when creating workflows and a couple tips for when you are creating your workflows. You always start by selecting the trigger, what's going to activate your workflow. Today, we are going to be talking about workflows that we use when records are created. So the idea is, a new lead or a new opportunity or something new is created within your system. What are the actions that you would want the system to take with that record to make it a little easier? You have lots of actions to choose from with workflows. You can send emails, you can create other records such as activities like phone calls, appointments, tasks. You can even create other records that exist within your CRM such as projects or opportunities or things like that as well. You can create multiple paths. So you can have one path for a certain record type based on a field that you have, and you can have a different path depending on how the fields are filled out. You can also activate child workflows, and then you always close out your workflow by stopping it. A few of the tips that I have when we're talking about this, we are looking at ways to make the end user's experience more streamlined, easier for them to manage all the records or the tasks that they may have to take with a record. But I always tell people, avoid creating too many. If you have 5 workflows creating a task for the same salesperson, they're going to wind up with hundreds of tasks, and it hasn't made it any easier for them to manage the data that they need to manage or to complete their job. So you always want to think through, write it out on paper or on a whiteboard, just kind of think through how much is going to be created by the workflows that you activate. Having a clear-cut path is also super important, especially if you're doing those multiple paths. You may have it if field A here is answered yes, I want it to take this path, and then later on you're like, oh wait, but if it's field B, I want it to take this path if that's answered yes. You could have a record that has both of those fields marked as yes, taking 2 different paths. You can wind up with circle workflows. So you definitely want to have a clear-cut path when you are setting out your workflows. And then as always, use the best process for your company. Some people, these workflows are going to work great for their company. They're exactly what they need. But in some instances, there may be other things that work better. Is it something where a business process is better than a workflow? Like the business processes have where you can create multiple stages. Maybe running an opportunity through a business process where it goes from one stage to the next is all you need to manage those opportunities. You don't need a workflow creating task lists and other appointments or things like that. So you always want to look at the options. Workflows are a great option. They're just not the only option within your CRM that can help you achieve the goal of managing your data, getting it through the process, streamlining everything for your customers. The end goal is to make the lives easier for those end users that have to enter the data in CRM. And the ultimate goal is to make sure that your business is flowing smoothly for your customers. You want to make sure if a customer has a case or a project that needs to be done, that it's done efficiently and without too many problems for them. Things aren't missing or falling through the cracks. So we're going to lay out, I've got 3 different examples we're going to look at today. We're going to look at the slides first on them, where we can see what we're doing, and then we'll get into how you create them. We've kept these pretty simple, and usually when I'm creating workflows, I do like to keep them simple so we don't run into a lot of errors. When you get into huge complex workflows, you can have it trip up on many steps, but also just to get your brainstorming going, to get you to think of how this could work for you and show you the basic steps. These are all workflows that have actually been created for companies and used, so they are ones that are effective. So in our first example here, we have when a new lead is created. So with this company, when they have a potential sales prospect, someone that isn't a customer yet, a new lead is created. And leads can be gathered through trade shows where maybe the salesperson that will be contacting them is not the one that is going to enter the lead. Leads can be entered by admins or just data entry people. So the salesperson following up on this may not be aware of the lead until it's created. So in this workflow, we require that the customers or potential customers are followed up within 3 days. That's the SLA we've set for it. So this workflow is going to create a phone call for follow-up within 3 days with a due date within 3 days for the salesperson. It's going to create a task to add this prospective customer to a company mailing list that the marketing person will handle. And then the workflow is going to wait those 3 days. And if the record is still showing new, it's going to escalate that record by emailing the supervisor and the salesperson and also changing the status of the record. So that's the first one we'll create, and we'll get to that in a moment. I just want to talk through 3 of them first. The next example we're going to look at is with customer service cases. So this is a lot of times when your customer is having a problem. In this case, cases are created by a dispatch person that is answering the phones, gathering the data from the customers. What it does is it emails the customer with the case information, lets them know who their customer service representative is, gives them a case number, things like that. So it gives the customer the contact information. It also emails the customer service rep that is going to be assigned to the case that they have a new case. And it updates the due date within to 48 hours after the case creation. So the SLA in this case is that they would be completed within 48 hours. And the last example that we're going to create today is with opportunities. So from a sales perspective, with this company, they create, they produce and manufacture things for their customers. So they do have a design department and a salesperson that have to work together as far as getting the customer a proposal. So the first thing that the workflow is going to do is create a task to send for the design that's due to be done within 24 hours of the opportunity being created. And then another task that pricing needs to be completed and the proposal needs to be sent to the customer that's due within 3 days, and then updates the estimated close date to 1 month from creation. This is a quicker paced sales situation. So let's go ahead and get into creating these workflows. Now within the CRM, if you are going to create workflows, the best way to access that is to go to the toolbar here and go to Settings, Customizations, and then to go to Customize the System, and it will pop up another window. I already have mine open here just for speed for the demo, and I do have 3 workflows started, just named and saved again for speed. If you're creating a new workflow, you would select New here and set up the name, the entity that it's for. I'll show you what the box looks like here. You give it a name, you select Workflow, and you select the entity that you are going to be activating this for. So let's go ahead and cancel that out. I've got the 3 here. I've got new lead, new case, and new opportunity. So we're going to start with that new lead one first. Okay, a couple things to note, just some basic housekeeping when you are creating a workflow. When you first start, the scope is always going to default to user. If you want it to take place across the whole company, you do need to switch that to organization. Or if you run within a parent-child business unit setup, if you have multiple business units, you may have business unit level. So far, most companies do across the whole organization. Right here underneath the scope, we do have the set of triggers that you can choose from. For all of these, we are going to be doing when a record is created. Other workflows that you do when it's either assigned to someone or fields change, status changes. We've covered in some past webinars a few different options with workflows. For today, we are just looking at when a new record is created. The other thing with available to run, it defaults to run the workflow in the background. From a usage perspective, how much data is being used at one time, running the workflow in the background is your best option. It can take a couple minutes to complete the workflow. So if you're looking for instantaneous, you would not want it run in the background, but for all these cases, if it takes a minute or two, it was completely fine. So we see that we have a completely blank workflow, and we're going to go ahead and start adding our steps. So the first step we're going to add in this case is we want to create a phone call for follow-up on our leads. So we're going to go ahead to create record, and we're going to look for the entity type. We're looking specifically for phone call here. We're going to create a phone call. We've selected our entity, and now we want to set the properties of the record we're creating. And here's where we can pull data from the record, the lead that was created, and we can also type some text in there as well. So the subject, we're going to say follow up call with, and then we're going to put in some dynamic values from our lead. So over here on the right-hand side, we have our form assistant with our dynamic values, and we're going to say we want to put the name of the lead in here. So we're going to set the field to, within the lead form, we want to look for the name. And we have first name and last name, so we're going to go ahead and put first name in. We're going to click add. And we've got to do it twice to get it to appear over here. We're going to select first name from the list and hit OK. And we can see now it's going to place the first name in there. And let's say we want the full name. I'm going to click here within the subject, just enter a space. And I'm going to get rid of this first name section now because I want to change it to last name. And you can add multiple fields within this box and then place them consecutively. I just find that I have less errors doing it one at a time with the workflow, and it also helps me to make sure and check everything off my box. Just want you guys to know that you can do it either way. Call to, this is the same thing where we've got to enter data, it's red asterisk, and we're going to enter a dynamic value. So we're going to go from the lead, and we're going to just choose the lead because we're calling on that particular lead. So I'm going to click add and OK. I'm going to leave pretty much everything else blank. You can put data in here if you want a description, if you want it to pull in information from the lead, you can. But for the sake of time today, we're just going to keep this very simple. We want to have that follow-up call. And what we are going to do, the last thing we want is the due date. And we're setting that due date 3 days. So we want to call within 3 days. So we're going to use our dynamic values over here again. We're going to set to, and you can see you have before or after. So depending on what date you're starting with, whether you want it to wait or be 3 days before or after, we're going to switch it to after. We're going to go 3 days after within the lead, the created on date. There are other dates that'll have just date fields in here, but we specifically are looking at that created on date. So we're going to add that, select it, and hit OK. So now you can see it's due 3 days after the created on for the lead. So we're going to go ahead and save and close that. And when you're creating steps, it does give you a chance to type a description within that, and I highly recommend it just to at least keep things in order or know what you've created. So I'm going to say create follow-up call due within 3 days of creation. Okay, so let's add our next step. The next thing we're going to add, we're going to create another record. And this time we're going to create a task. So I'm going to go down to task. And we're going to go ahead and set the properties of the task here. And the subject, we're going to just say add lead to mailing list. And in the description this time, we're going to put the lead information. Put the lead in there. And then we're also going to take from the lead, let's look for the email, because we're going to say we do an electronic newsletter for this case. Okay, so we've got those two things in there. And for this, we're not going to have a due date on that, but we are going to change the owner on it. So here we have owner, and I should have done this with the phone call too, so I'll go back and correct that. But we are going to assign an owner to it. So in this case, I'm going to look up a value, and we have different people. We're going to say Deb's going to be really busy in this sandbox environment here. We're going to say Deb is going to be responsible for adding to the mailing list. So let's go ahead and save and close that task. Now I'm going to go back into the phone call here. And even though I'm the one entering the lead today, normally a salesperson wouldn't enter a lead. So we're going to say I'm the salesperson for this case. And so we could select directly from here and select just me. But if we have multiple salespeople, we want to go back to those dynamic values. So within that, the owner of this phone call needs to be the owner of the lead, because our admin will assign the lead to a particular person. So we're going to go ahead and select OK, and we can see it is now the owner of the lead. So there's two ways you can fill out those types of fields. So let's go ahead and close that out. Okay, the next thing we want to do is we want to wait for those 3 days, and then we want to escalate it if since I'm going to be the salesperson, have not done what I need to do. So we're going to enter a wait condition. And here we select the hyperlink to enter the condition. Anytime you want to wait for a period of time, what we're going to do is scroll all the way down, and we're looking for the process, because this workflow is a process. So we're waiting 3 days. We're going to take a timeout. And here we see we have that dynamic value popping up again. So we're going to say timeout equals, and for the value, we're going to say 3 days after the created on date for the lead. Save and close that. And then we're going to add a step underneath there where we're going to check now. So we're going to check the condition, and we're going to click the hyperlink to add a condition. We want to check if the lead, we're going to go down to the status because we're interested in the status. Status reason equals, we're going to click here to see what options we have, and we're interested in if it's still new. Okay, we're going to save and close that. So now we've got, after you create follow-up call, we create task to add to mailing list. Then we wait until 3 days after creation. And if it's still new, what action do we want to take? So we're going to select this row. And since I know we're getting close on time here, I'm going to say we're just going to escalate this. We're in a sandbox environment where the emails wouldn't work anyways, but normally if you're going to send an email, you select send email, and then you can configure the message with all the properties. That is a whole subject on itself. It's one that we have covered before, so you definitely can look up on setting emails up. But we're going to delete that step here. And we're going to go ahead and we're just going to update this record. So if within 3 days it still shows as new, we want to update the lead. And what we want to do is we want to change it to escalated. So I'm looking for the field here. I have a tendency to scroll right by fields when I'm looking for them, so that's why I'm going so slow. There's status. And I probably still went right by it. Okay, well, I'm going to show you a different way to achieve this then. Normally all your fields are right here, and I must just not be seeing it. Another way that you could update just a status, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to change status. We're going to change the lead to show escalated. Okay, and we're going to say that that's all we want to do with this record. So we're going to go ahead and, oh, I've got too many things highlighted here. We're going to stop the workflow after that because then we're done with it. Okay, so let's save this one. We're going to go ahead and we're going to save it. And the important thing with any workflow after you save it is to activate it. If you don't activate it, it's not going to do anything for you. So we're going to go ahead and activate that one. And you can see now it's active. So let's go ahead and close that one out. And let's go to the new case. So with the new case, we have the same setup and we can get right into our steps. With this one, what we want it to do is we want it to send an email to the customer. And I'm just going to set up a couple of properties here within the email. Again, it's a sandbox environment, so it's not going to send anyways because it's not connected to an email. But here you can pull those dynamic views plus text that you want in there. So you can say for the case, who the contact is for the case, that's who we're going to send the email to. And we're going to say it's from the owner of the case because we want it to look like it's coming from the person that owns the case. And your case has been created. Oh, it didn't put in there. And we can just, we'll just say test email here so we have something in the description. And I'm going to go ahead and save and close that. Again, emails, you can change font, you can insert hyperlink. There's so much you can do. It is a subject all within itself. And then we would also want it to send another email to the customer service rep. Now, with that, you could combine both of them, send to both the customer service rep and the customer to alert, unless you want to include additional information. If you want more information included with the customer service rep, that's when you would split it into two like that. That's what the company that I worked with had wanted to do. Again, since sake of time, we're not going to create the second one, but that's how you would do that. And then the last thing with this one is to update that follow-up date. So we're going to go to update record. We're looking at the case. We're going to set the properties here. And we are looking for within the case, it's called, ours is called follow-up by instead of due date. So we're going to set the follow-up by, and this one we want to set it to 48 hours. This goes up to 23, so for 48 hours, I do have to say within 2 days after the case was created on. Okay, so we've got that. We'll save and close. And that, we're going to save the workflow after I put our stop workflow on there. It will still run if you don't have the stop workflow, but you can wind up using your system resources if things are spinning and don't have a specific stop. This is just one way to actually stop a workflow and make sure that it stops using the resources. So I always put them in my workflows, but if you forget them, it's not always the end of the world. We're going to go ahead and activate that one and close that out. And then let's get to our opportunity one here. Okay, we've got everything set up. So with this, we're going to create 2 tasks. So let's go ahead, create our first task. And for this one, we want to send for design. And I'm going to say send, and then I'm going to put the opportunity name in. So look for opportunity, and then I'm just looking for opportunity again. When you choose the opportunity or the lead or account, it's going to give you the name of it, that overall title. So send that opportunity for design. And we're just going to keep it really simple. We're going to put a due date on here. We want it within 24 hours. So we're going to say 1 day after. And you can see here, it can be months, up to months after, or even just a few minutes. I'm going to say after the created on. And we're going to save and close that task. We're going to say send to design task. And then we're going to add another task in here. Create record. We're going to create another task. Okay, and with this one, we're going to say pricing needs to be completed for, and we're going to choose that opportunity again. I'm going to say send proposal. We're going to give it a due date. This one we want within 3 days. So we're going to say 3 days after the opportunity is created on date. We're going to save and close that task. Pricing completed task. And the last thing we want to do is we want to update the estimated close date on the opportunity. We're going to update this estimated close date. There we go. Saw that one pretty quickly. We're going to say 1 month after the opportunity is created. And a good reason for setting dates to those types of dynamic values, it allows you to filter your views. Show me everything that has an estimated close date within the next week, or show me something that has a due date within the next 2 days. It really gives you a way to manage your views so you know what you have to take action on right now. Okay, so let's save this and activate it, and then I'll show you what they can work like. Okay, let's get that one activated as well. Okay, so we can see now when we're looking at our 3 new workflows here, they are all activated. So I'm going to go back in and let's just create some new. Let's create a new lead. And ours do not quite look the same way, but let's create a new lead here. There we go. We've got our lead created. I'm just going to create all of them and then we'll look at them all together, just allowing that workflow some time to run in the background. I'm going to create a new case here. And with our case, we're going to say 826 demo case. There we go. And I'll pick my contact. And I think that's enough to save the new case. Perfect. And then let's go ahead and create a new opportunity. You can see ABC Training is my favorite company to work with. They're just great. And we're going to say, there we go. And I think that's all we really absolutely have to have. Oh, estimated revenue. There we go. Okay, so let's go take a look. Now that all those have created, I'm going to go back to my home screen. And something that we've seen so far is I've got my activities up here on a dashboard, and you can see I've got a few tasks and a phone call. I've got my follow-up call with, and I didn't enter a first and last name, so it's blank. But then you can see I have some tasks, pricing needing to be completed for that demo opportunity, and send it to design for that demo opportunity as well. This isn't the best view. Normally, when we create it, I would expand it out so this view covers this and probably this square as well, because you can see the due dates. Then you could also filter, show me my activities due within the next 3 days, so you really know what you have to be doing now. If you had a lot of records creating a lot of tasks and activities, you could see how this list could get to be overwhelming, but it also can help you with things. When we look here at my open opportunities, I have quite a few open opportunities, and they may be in all different areas. But here I've got specific deadlines for what I need to do with each of those opportunities. Another thing that we can see, let's go ahead to the cases here. So here's my demo case. And with this demo case, a couple of the activities, it does have a your case has been created email. It doesn't actually send, but it did place it within the CRM because it tried to send it. And we can also see on our additional details, the follow-up date was set to 2 days from now. And when we look at our opportunity, and we look at this demo opportunity we just created, with the activities, you also can see the 2 tasks are here within the opportunity. And you can see that our estimated close date is for September 26th. So these are just a few ways that you can use workflows to really set a record up for your company, to give people, here's your due dates, here's what you need to do now, here's what you need to take action on next week, to really help them to manage that workflow. Does anyone have any questions? Well, thank you so much for spending part of your day with me, and have a great rest of your day.